A decade down the line, companies are not really able to mine that kind of return on investment, which is a key business metric when you're putting in so much money into your data strategy. So how should startups in particular, where they want to conserve every last dollar or every last rupee, approach this entire aspect of their data strategy? Should they start small, look at smaller projects, see the kind of value that it generates before they move on to something bigger?
I think to draw it back into the context of a startup, when you think of using a platform that provides you the grade of data that you need, right? The access you need, the protection you need, the ability to kind of manipulate data in the manner in which you need to be able to draw the insights out of it. I'd say start small, more than just small. Small is a very relative term. Stay focused. You have to start with data that's allowing you to drive business value for the customers that you're going to be serving immediately. What you need to do is be sure that you are on a platform that allows you to scale. And when you talk about scale, you automatically get scale when you're using the cloud. What you need to be able to assure also is that you're getting the agility, the ability to move fast, not just become big, but even shift to different use cases.
Greg, come in here. I mean, how do you leverage some of those technology solutions that are out there today to quickly scale up, yet be flexible, and have produce that kind of value from the data that is being generated?
From the early days, we really looked at investing behind certain mobile tools in terms of tracking. And so there, even at a very small scale, there are definitely ways that you can have much better visibility and insight into how your app is being used. And so there are quite a few tools out there, even back when we started, that had that capability to understand how people were actually using your app and how they were consuming your broader interface. And so I think that was something which was really quite essential for us to get that visibility in terms of just, where they were engaging in our app, how long it was taking them, the different steps of our funnel.
Interesting, because let me toss this across to Kanika. How did you go about addressing this aspect of having enough data from your customers while also trying to quickly scale up?
So initially, when we were starting out the business, I think we relied on a lot of external companies that provide you a lot of databases. And to my disappointment, I would say only 40 to 50% was actually accurate, but that did help us at least acquire new customers, have more insights into customers, what they want, what they do. It also helped us fix a lot of things internally as to our service levels. What I assume my customers may want may not really be what my customers really want. And this was, I think, one of our biggest learnings as such.
Interesting, Kanika. In fact, Greg, let me come back to you, because some might say you had the luxury of time, so to speak, because Zoomcar, began early, so you could really build that funnel and, really create that kind of customer base. Would you say the approach has changed somewhat? Because in today's day and age, if you were to start Zoomcar, what would you do differently?
I think primarily for us, we would have, I would say at that point, invested more in kind of the core mobile product, because when we started, mobile was still kind of in its infancy in sort of 2013-14, the relative maturity of mobile apps, especially on the consumer side. There were still a lot of questions there. And so I think, just really building a very, very super streamlined user experience on the app took actually quite a bit of time.
Indeed, and I have used your app. It is indeed, at least for a customer like myself, it's been extremely easy to use. Ravi, I mean, you've heard from both of them, very different sort of experiences. But as I said, in today's marketplace, it's a very different market for startups. They don't have time to learn, right? So, where would those key investment areas, what would you advise them in terms of those key investment areas to really address a market such as the one we are in currently?
You look at the kind of startup scene in India, if you look at the 40,000 plus startups that you can see out there that are active, 15,000 of them may be technology startups, what we used to consider hot for all of time, right? Good 25,000 of them are actually using technology as a given to be able to drive change in the world. And so I think just focus on what's your strength, right? Focus on what's important to you, reaching that new customer, creating that new product, disrupting something that kind of is working in a very old style or old fashioned manner. Um, and use specialists to kind of get your platform right.
Okay, so keep that bit for the specialists. Startups should focus on their business fundamentals. Kanika, have you followed a similar route? I mean, how did you sort of build a data culture within your company?
I still think there's a big generation gap between this. If I hire a 25-year-old, 28-year-old, 32-year-old, they come to me saying, "Ma'am, where is the data? Where is the data? Where is the data? Why aren't we using this? Why aren't we doing that? We're too slow. We need to move faster." And then there's a senior generation who's like, "This is such a waste of time. There's so many questionnaires to fill. There's so much to do." And a lot of times also what happens is we don't use everything they give us. A lot of it is repetitive. A lot of it is not necessary, and I think that again causes a lot of friction where so much effort is gone in, it's not being utilized. So I think yeah, it's a constant struggle where I think we've come a long way, and we hope to finally have everyone on board.
Greg, let's talk about where things go from here. We're talking about the journey of a startup. They want to see that return on investment because every dollar counts. And how do you sort of prioritize from here on? The kind of investments that you make in data in terms of your data strategy, what are going to be those key pillars of investments, and how soon or how do you sort of measure those metrics in terms of return on investment? Have those requirements become a little stiffer in a market like this?
Sure. Well, yeah, I think it's really important that you understand any business, Zoomcar in particular, you have to understand the levers of profitability. So you have to really understand your unit economics well, and then the walk from the unit economics to your overall corporate P&L and your EBITDA, et cetera. And so that ultimately that whole transition and understanding where you are in the journey and getting from, again, sort of X to Y in terms of initially you're going to start any business with probably negative unit economics or marginal unit economics and get them better and better and better over time. Same with Zoomcar on our journey as well. And so foundationally, when it comes to the data and that whole piece and how it integrates and ties in, you really have to make sure that the data is actually instrumented for profitability, meaning that you need to make sure that you understand those 3, 4, 5 key levers that's going to move you into profitability.
Kanika, come in here. Is quality of revenue very important? I mean, where do those additional dollars go in now in terms of investments, and particularly what role does data play in all of that?
For us, the measure of quality of revenue is that how much are we investing into the customer to ensure that the customer is equally beneficial for the company. And it's not like we don't pay attention to one-time customers, etc. We do; they're equally important. But at the same time, I think what's always been more important to us is people who are going to, are going to be loyal, who are going to be willing to move forward, work forward, and that's where again a lot of data comes in. I think customer loyalty is extremely important for building any business, right? How do you achieve customer loyalty? It's through acting upon all the data points, understanding what they like, what they don't like, what is it that we can do to change to make the services better towards them.
Great. Thanks, Kanika. So, closing comments, Ravi. What do you predict? I mean, as I said, NetApp has been there and it's been watching the entire sort of journey as far as data is concerned, and of course, COVID and pandemic and how it's completely changed the marketplace. What do you think are going to be, the key sort of developments that we are going to see in the data in the data infrastructure market in the coming few years?
Paramita, it's not just that we've been watching it, we've been driving it also for a really long time, and we'll continue to do it. Let me put it to you this way, in the simplest mantra possible, right? It's about simplifying, it's about making things simple. Anybody building a business like Greg was building, or anyone else in the startup ecosystem was building, if they had to kind of try and do it 2 decades ago, they would be spending an inordinate amount in developing a business plan that justified an IT expense that would get them to what they did. That's gone down to virtually zero. What's left now is that there are still things that are not core to them that take up a lot of their time and effort. they'd like to get insight from the data, not have to worry about managing the data. So we've kind of gotten to the point where that problem is now solved.
Greg, the worry is that some companies might just drown in all this data because they simply don't know what to do about it. What do you predict for the future?
Yeah, well, I think that's a good point. I think it's all about being structured at the end of the day, and it's all about really first and foremost knowing your customer, understanding your business really, really well, just at a foundational level. So leave data aside, and once you have that foundational first principle view of your business, of your customer, then the data structure and sort of what you use, when you use it, how you use it, all of that falls out. That's an outgrowth. So I don't think you need to overthink it because it's quite organic when you understand your business and your customer.
And Kanika, the final word belongs to you.
I think going forward, and what I see even happening currently, a lot of organizations are planning their businesses' futures, planning their current decisions, future decisions, based on data organically that they have built on, they have collated, not going by a report that someone has published or by a data that is third party published. And I think that's going to be a big change we're going to see going forward.
Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Kanika and Ravi, for joining us for this very insightful discussion. Indeed, data strategy has to be part of the journey of any startup, and they need to consider the right technology platform and solutions to really deliver those quality insights, which can give them the right return on investments into their own data strategy. Thank you to our viewers as well for joining us on this special series, Startup Journey to Success.